Hello, it's Lindsay and Patricia here again with the Dirty Double podcast. And today's topic will be on coaching styles and leadership and sort of the experiences that Patricia and I have each had with various coaches throughout the years and what we think about leadership styles and how to get the best out of athletes.
Yeah. So, Lindsay, you've had a lot of different coaches over I think it was your rowing career was like at least 20 years, right? Is that right? Yeah. So you've had a lot of different coaches. I think I've asked you this question before about, I think I asked you like, what was the biggest lesson each coach had taught you? And I remember it was quite interesting because you actually answered them all with like personality things they taught you and leadership things they taught you, not things like technique or whatever. So I remember thinking that was really interesting. Do you think you could expand on some of your experiences with your better coaches?
Yeah, I mean, like you were kind of saying, like I think that I've had a lot of really great ones, and I've had overall what I consider really bad ones. But the reason that I felt like I was always able to advance as an athlete and improve was that even when I was, for lack of a better word, stuck with a bad coach, I was always very conscious to derive out of them some kind of positive aspect, because I do really think that, you can learn something from everyone, and you're going to learn more from some people than others, but there's always something. And I'd say that the underlying quality that the coaches who I really liked, and I'm not saying the word liked like people might expect in the sense that I liked hanging out with them or they were nice or, when I say I like a coach, I'm almost always referencing, did they enhance me as an athlete? Did I feel that they projected me further into my career? And I'd say the ones that did that, I could sum it up as that they treated me like a person first. So they considered, how I felt in certain situations, or, they talked to me. Like maybe it was as simple as, asking, what do you think? Or how do you feel about, A, B, and C? And because what that did for me, I think, was it made me self-reflect. So instead of do this, do that, do this, asking the question, what do you think or how do you feel or what does it feel like when the boat is doing this to you, makes you have to analyze. It makes you have to assess the situation, and then in doing so, you really fully understand something. And then when you understand it, you're learning better, right? It's not just a memorization of some instruction that someone gave you. Mm-hmm. And I felt that the coaches that generally did that, the ones that asked those questions, 100% of the time, those coaches were confident people. They had less ego, and they were very confident in themselves.
Yeah. I'd say that I can agree with that as being a pretty stark difference between having a coach that's confident in themselves and one that's a bit insecure, mostly because for me, I really like to ask why we're doing something. Right, and if someone's confident in why we're doing something, they can give an answer, and they answer it honestly and with ease and happily. Whereas when I've had,
like the why, so often someone can be offended by the question why, but why be offended by why?
Yeah. Well, and it creates, I think a lot of times I've seen it create an environment where people are fearful to ask why. So then kind of like you said, there's no real learning going on. It's just, okay, yes, sir, no, sir, I'll do that. And then when you're out there on the race course alone, what do you don't have that coach there.
Like I kind of compare it to like if you were studying certain topics in school, there's some things where you just have to memorize the answer, right, for a test. So you go through, and there's all these like categories or topic, whatever, and it's just a memorization of certain things. And you remember it, hopefully, for the test, and usually get through that. And then, a week, 2 weeks later, it's gone. Yeah. Whereas when I think back to math, which was a topic that, you kind of got into the root of why something was happening. You didn't memorize the answers to math problems. You memorized how you found the solution. Mm-hmm. And to this day, there's things that I remember because of learning it that way. And I think that that's a very scholastic kind of comparison, but really, I think a good coach really helps you to dive in and understand why and how you're doing things such that you can extrapolate it onto other things in life. You can carry it through your sport for longer, and you just have a better understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah, they're actually because I'm in my master's right now, we talk a little bit about that concept, which I guess is, again, academic reference to sport, but it is in both you're trying to excel at something and learn something. And they're moving away from memorization across the board because it's not a functional way to learn. Understanding where something comes from, so where technical change comes from, or where a certain workout is coming from, like what's the physiological underlying theme of this session, is actually more important than what the session is, or it's just that deeper understanding is the only way people actually learn it. So yeah, it's definitely a valid thing to feel like if you can't just memorize what your coach is saying, and you have to be able to ask why, to not just memorize. One thing, Lindsay, I felt like we differed in our in some coaches that we liked or didn't like, and I felt like you liked a stronger leader. I'm not sure. You can maybe help me with the wording on this, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the kind of that concept that like leadership can be defined by a lot of different ways, right? And I felt most led when a coach there were just certain aspects that weren't, I don't want to say up for debate, because I did appreciate, like we're just discussing, that ability to ask why, mm-hmm. or to have a conversation, but that it gave you at times a very definitive answer about, okay, just do this. Or, there was a happy medium for me in telling me that their idea was the one I should go with, and
sure.
and also allowing me to have input, because if I felt like if I was in too much control, then mm-hmm. it made me worried, or it made me I was less believing in the process, because although I do think I was a good athlete, I still felt like, well, that coach is there for a reason. So if they're not kind of taking on that leadership role fully, then mm-hmm. it made me feel like there was no one really guiding the process. Like I didn't want to guide the process per se.
Sure.
That's kind of what you would have sensed, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I also sense that, like you said, I think we've talked about this, where you actually really do want a coach that you can ask the question why, or that asks you questions, and you like to have a decent amount of control over your own training and like racing experience. But then there's also this study that wanted some rigidity from the coach.
Yeah, totally.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Poor coach, eh?
Yeah.
Said to be perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But then, I think that's why bringing this up is an interesting topic, because I think it'd be good for you to kind of express to people, how you differed in that area, because I think it'd be very fascinating for people to know that, in an Olympic campaign where you've got two people in one boat working so closely together, how we could possibly have been successful when we did appreciate different styles within the coach. So maybe explain to everyone what kind of how you were feeling about them, but mm-hmm. what worked for you, and why, given that it was different from me at times, how did we still manage to be successful?
Yeah, sure. Well, my mom can testify to this. I don't really like authority figures or power hierarchies at all. I think that I prefer a level, I would put the athlete and coach should be completely equal control or leadership over the experience. I don't really like to be led. I kind of like to feel like I'm leading my own way. I'm making my own fate, and there's no no barrier of any sorts between that. So I think I appreciate it to be a equal conversation between athlete and coach, where we were kind of equal stakeholders in the end decision. And sometimes probably even more so, I would want it to be a collaborative decision between all of us, but I listen to you more than I listen to our coach, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I was ever stuck in a place where you were saying one thing and the coach was saying the other, I 100% went with you, because you were the athlete and you were living the experience with me, and you had to live the exact experience that I had maybe a few years before, because you're a bit more experienced as an athlete. So I knew you had been, besides being a different person than me, you had been in the same situation. Maybe It felt different because you're a different person. And I felt like I'd lived in my body for, I don't know, I guess I started rowing when I was 19 years old. So for 19 years. And I thought that was, the coach was trying to make my body win an Olympic medal. And so was I. So I thought, my input's extremely important, because if this coach really wants to make my body win the Olympic medal, he's got to know. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that we keep saying he, because all of our coaches were males. Yeah. So he's got to know what's going on inside my body. Like, doesn't he want to know that? So I think that's why I felt I didn't like being told, this is what you should do. Because I was like, well, how do you know what I should do? You're not in my body.
Right. Yeah.
And I think though, the underlying thing is that I'm not a fan of authority figures for the sake of being an authority figure. So if you're like why I look to you is because you were maybe an authority figure over me, because you were a world champion and had been rowing for 10 plus years longer than me. So you earned that authority over me, kind of, where I didn't necessarily feel like coaches. It wasn't
a title per se.
Yes, the titles can. Yeah. Probably admittedly throw me off a little, like, too much the opposite direction. But I don't I don't listen to titles.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the way you could sum that up, right? Like, walk the walk, don't talk the talk. Or you can talk the talk, but you're going to listen to the walk a lot more.
Yeah,
which makes sense. I think that's how Tom got the best out of us, because he did seem to adapt to be who we needed him to be. And I think that Tom kind of helped me understand what it meant to be a coach, and that I kind of came up with this quote, I guess you could say. I don't know if you can quote yourself, but that, a good coach is someone, to coach well means that you are being who someone else needs you to be, not who you want to be.
I noticed that with Bob at when I was at UW. It definitely drove some girls nuts, I'm sure, but he treated everyone quite differently. And at times it even bothered me a little bit, like, why is he treating that athlete that way and being quite a bit harder on me? But then once I realized that's because that's what that athlete needs. And honestly, him being hard on me was exactly what I needed in that moment.
Right.
So he was adapting him, and he was quite experienced. So I think that he probably just learned over the years to treat each athlete like how that athlete needs to be treated. Not.
And that exact concept that you're saying is the exact thing that makes me wonder, can good coaches be created, or is it this skill? Like, because to me, the thing that makes the greatest coaches great is that there's that, what you just described, that ability, that human ability to read people, to be who other people need you to be when they need you to be it. And how do you, can you read that in a textbook? Can you take that in a coaching course? I don't know. And that's sort of like a battle I've got in my own mind. If I were to pursue coaching, I think, well, this is a key quality in my mind that makes a great coach. Do I have that thing? And if I don't have that thing, can it even be learned?
Yeah. Individualizers.
Yeah, just that natural, because to me that's that's a good leader, right? Like they're leading you to be your best version of yourself in the context that you're, being led, without necessarily even knowing that you're following. And if you look at all the greatest leaders across time, I would imagine that that's a quality that they possessed, and it's like, is that learned? And that's, I really am curious. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm actually reading a book right now for school on counseling, and they talked about a few different things that could easily be related to coaching. And I think that maybe there's sometimes maybe a bit of a gap in this in the like kind of counseling, the like psychology side of coaching. Yeah. There's like the psychology side of like sport performance. That's like, yeah, you can motivate athletes by pushing them and saying like, do you really want this? Those kind of things that really actually don't work. But maybe there's a bit of a gap in the empathy side of things. In that. And so one of the things that I was reading about, I thought was quite interesting, is they're talking about motivational interviewing. So looking at, and I don't actually know what's laid out for coaches in their coaching training. I haven't done it, so I don't really know. But this motivational interview thing was kind of cool, how you ask questions in a way to empower and make someone tell the best story about themselves. So we all have like numerous stories we tell about ourselves. And I can think very clearly of one where I'm like, I'm the best stroke seat in the world and I'm going to win an Olympic gold medal. There's that one side of myself that I had. And then there was another side of myself that was like, ooh, I'm a little bit weak-minded. I have depression. I'm inexperienced. I don't row long enough. Like there's that side. Mm-hmm. And so then the way someone talks to you can either bring out the side of me that's very confident and believes in myself, or the side of me that feels kind of crummy about myself. And so if a coach has the power, and Tom did this to me for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Tom did this.
Yeah, even now I feel like I've hung out with Tom as a person, not an athlete, and he makes me feel so good about myself. Mm-hmm. He makes me feel like my best version of myself. And so I think if a coach can make each athlete feel like the best version of themselves, and have that skill, and I'm reading about how to do that in a textbook. So I think it can be learned. It's just maybe a gap in the coaching.
100%.
The training the coaches, the ones that we've come across. There's a few of them that it seemed like it was either a natural ability or not. That being said, Tom is a psychologist. He has his background in psychology, so maybe that's why he was able to bring that into his coaching practice.
Yeah, and I think that we were at a level where we were so good technically, we were, pretty seasoned in terms of our physiology, that was the cherry, right? Like that was the final thing that needed to come out in order for us to reach our max potential. It was like, you got most of the ingredients in the bowl, but like, how do you really seal off like the final product? And to me, it was having someone allow us to see that we had all we needed. Yeah.
There's so much, like the sports science team is pretty big now. There's like nutrition, strength and conditioning, physiology, the sports psychology side of it. I don't know what else there is. Oh, there's like all the practitioners that deal with your like body alignment, injuries, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Core strength, that stuff. So and there's biomechanics to deal with the nitty gritty of technique. So I kind of see that it is probably almost the biggest, it should be the coach's strength is getting us to see that we're as good as we are and believe in ourselves, because the other stuff can be done by sports science.
That's right. There's experts at that. And furthermore, that aspect, I think, requires a person who sees you at your highest, sees you at your lowest, seeing you for, 6 to 8 hours a day. Like the coach is the only one out of that group that you mentioned that really has the capacity to learn who you are as a human, because they're seeing everything about you.
Yeah, it's almost their job to be that person that knows you, like you said, as a person. So then they can kind of mediate that with what the scientists are saying. Yeah, I see that we need to do a volume phase right now, but I've also noticed that Patricia's mood's gone down a lot the last 2 weeks, and I don't think she's probably not in a physiological state because of her mental state to be pushing that volume right now.
Yeah, like everyone else can see you, right? Can see you and alter you as a machine, and the coach needs to mediate that as a human being.
Yeah, I think Tom did a really good job of that, and it made it easier to trust. For me, it made me listen to him a lot and trust him as a figure of authority. I felt I could listen to him because he he made me feel good about myself. And he's like kind of how you brought up at the beginning of this conversation, saw me as a person. Do you have anything more to say on that? I feel like we figured it out.
I think that was, I honestly, the reason I don't is like, I feel like we had a good concept of this as we started this conversation, but I feel like the conversation itself walked me and you through a journey of understanding what a coach really should be.
Yeah. For more conversations from the world of women's sport, including articles, videos, blogs, and more than 700 podcasts, visit wispsports.com and also follow us on social media at WiSP Sports, as well as our personal Twitters at OBEE1111 and at Lindsay Jenner. We'd love to hear what you think about the show too. If you'd like to leave a comment on the website or our Facebook page, you can drop us a line at info@wispsports.com. And WiSP Sports Radio is now on every major podcast player: iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. Until next time, I'm Patricia Obee.
And I'm Lindsay Jennerich.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.